I duck out of sight.
I said you're ready to go live, and you're like, oh yes.
Oh, shit. Well, you see, the thing is, that the places we usually go to buy all of the Easter stuff are closed.
Yes, and also you shouldn't go to buy Easter stuff because of the social distancing. But
Yeah,
mostly the places are closed.
it's sort of the same issue either way. Places are closed, even if they weren't, we wouldn't go there. But if they weren't, it would probably be because there was no pandemic, so we would go there. Anyway,
Are you making Easter stuff?
that is the goal. I have this room full of art crap, and I think that in this box right by my feet, I have. Eggs. And
Eggs!
eggs. I have, there's a lot going on in here. This is like the box of random wooden shit that I haven't figured out what to do with yet.
I really was hoping you were going to say the box of random wood.
That's its new name because it flows, as we know. Also, things like this turn up at hardware stores, like on the sale racks, and I grab them because steampunk.
Sure. Yeah, checks out.
Yeah. Yes. Is that another egg? Oh, that is a failed egg. I was doing mushrooms. I also painted wood burned mushrooms on the side of an egg.
I don't see what's faily about that. They look like mushrooms.
Ah, but this is not going to work for the children.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, you never know. One of your children might be into mycology.
Indeed. But not yet. And I don't want to push it because then the only way to rebel is to not ever get into it. I don't really like how this turned out either, but it was a worthy experiment. And I never did the other side.
I mean, it's not bad. It's got the phases of the moon. It's got some little swirly mabobbers.
Right? The swirly mabobbers are what bother me. They're kind of half-assed. I'm detail-oriented. Oh my god, I've been painting. Did you see my post?
No, I haven't really been on social media.
It's been so nice to finally be painting again because I had I had my schedule worked out so that while the kids were in school, I spent at least 4 hours a day painting. So I haven't painted in 2 weeks. And Jason bought me all the canvases I need. He found them on sale at Blick. So now I have 118 canvases. And then I stopped painting.
Well, you know.
But I did iodine today, and I finished up xenon. And they look so cute. Iodine looks like a Lost Boy, and xenon looks like Michael Hague illustration, actually. But I love it.
That's awesome.
Any hoozles?
Any hoozles? Yes, it is. I've got the book right here.
And I've got the eggs right here.
We're so set. You might want to mute yourself, though, because they're making a lot of, like, scrunchy plastic noises. There we go. It was going to bother me if I didn't finish that sentence.
Scrunchy plastic noises going live.
What? Okay. All right.
B-52s? I remember the B-52s.
I don't remember that song.
It's Shiny Happy People.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, let's see. They were going towards a hill. The path seemed to be making directly for the hill. That's where we stopped. They now hurried forward again, delighted with the thought of climbing out for a while above the roof of the forest. The path dipped and then again began to climb upwards, leading them at last to the foot of the steep hillside. There it left the trees and faded into the turf. The woods stood all round the hill like thick hair that ended sharply in a circle round a shaven crown. The hobbies next apocalypse hairstyle? No. The hobbits led their ponies up, winding round and round until they reached the top. There they stood and gazed about them. The air was gleaming in sunlight, but hazy, and they could not see to any great distance. Near at hand the mist was now almost gone, though here and there it lay in the hollows of the wood, and to the south of them, out of a deep fold cutting right across the forest, the fog still rose, like steam or wisps of white smoke. "That," said Merry, pointing with his hand, "that is the line of the Withywindle. It comes down out of the downs and flows southwest through the midst of the forest to join the Brandywine below Hayes End. We don't want to go that way."
Mary, you shouldn't have said that. Now the trees know.
Right? The Withywindle Valley is said to be the queerest part of the whole wood. I don't know what this accent is, but we're going with it.
I've never been able to nail down Mary's accent either, because Dominic Monaghan is German and English and unimitatable.
Mm-hmm.
That's a word.
I'm not even really imitating anyone. I just kind of gave Pippin an Irish accent, and then I kind of gave Merry the same accent, but trending down at the end of the sentence instead of up, because he's a little more confident.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I dig.
Thank you.
I knew
right. We don't want to go that way. The Withywindle is said to be the queerest part of the whole wood, the center from which all the queerness comes, as it were. Sounds like a party. The others looked in the direction that Merry pointed out, but they could see little but mists over the damp and deep-cut valley, and beyond it the southern half of the forest faded from view. The sun on the hilltop was now getting hot. It must have been about 11 o'clock, but the autumn haze still prevented them from seeing much in other directions. In the west they could not make out either the line of the hedge or the valley of the Brandywine beyond it. Northward, where they looked most hopefully, they could see nothing that might be the line of the great east road for which they were making. They were on an island in a sea of trees, and the horizon was veiled. On the southeastern side, the ground fell very steeply, as if the slopes of the hill were continued far down under the trees, like island shores that are really the sides of a mountain rising out of deep waters. They sat on the green edge and looked out over the woods below them while they ate their midday meal. As the sun rose in past noon, they glimpsed far off in the east the gray-green lines of the downs that lay beyond the old forest on that side. That cheered them greatly, for it was good to see a sight of anything beyond the woods' borders, though they did not mean to go that way if they could help it. The Barrow Downs had as sinister a reputation in Hobbit legend as the forest itself.
Okay, Chekhov, here's your gun. Now don't do anything with
it. Boy, I sure hope we don't go that way. Never go that way.
She'd gone straight to that castle. All right.
At length, they made up their minds to go on again. Oh, sorry. The path that had brought them to the hill reappeared on the northward side, but they had not followed it far before they became aware that it was bending steadily to the right. Soon it began to descend rapidly, and they guessed that it must actually be heading towards the Withywindle Valley, not at all the direction that they wished to take. After some discussion, they decided to leave this misleading path and strike northward, for although they had not been able to see it from the hilltop, the road must lie that way, and it could not be many miles off. Also northward and to the left of the path, the land seemed to be drier and more open, climbing up to slopes where the trees were thinner, and pines and firs replaced the oaks and ashes and other strange and nameless trees of the denser wood. At first, their choice seemed to be good. They got along at a fair speed, though whenever they got a glimpse of the sun in an open glade, they seemed unaccountably to have veered eastwards. But after a time, the trees began to close in again, just where they had appeared from a distance to be thinner and less tangled. Then deep folds in the ground were discovered unexpectedly, like the ruts of great giant wheels or wide moats and sunken roads, long disused and choked with brambles. These lay usually right across their line of march, and could only be crossed by scrambling down and out again, which was troublesome and difficult with their ponies. Each time they climbed down, they found the hollow filled with thick bushes and matted undergrowth, which somehow would not yield to the left, but only gave way when they turned to the right. And they had to go some distance along the bottom before they could find a way up the further bank. Each time they clambered out, the trees seemed deeper and darker, and always to the left and upwards. It was most difficult to find a way, and they were forced to the right and downwards. After an hour or two, they had lost all clear sense of direction, though they knew well enough that they had long ceased to go northward at all. They were being headed off, and were simply following a course chosen for them, eastwards and southwards, into the heart of the forest, and not out of it. The afternoon was wearing away when they scrambled and stumbled into a fold that was wider and deeper than any they had yet met. It was so steep and overhung that it proved impossible to climb out of it again, either forwards or backwards, without leaving their ponies and their baggage behind. All they could do was to follow the fold, downwards. The ground grew soft and in places boggy. Springs appeared in the banks, and soon they found themselves following a brook that trickled and babbled through a weedy bed. Then the ground began to fall rapidly, and the brook, growing strong and noisy, flowed and leaped swiftly downhill. They were in a deep, dim-lit gully overarched by trees high above them. After stumbling along for some way along the stream, they came quite suddenly out of the gloom. As if through a gate, they saw the sunlight before them. Coming to the opening, they found that they had made their way down through a cleft in a high, steep bank, almost a cliff. At its feet was a wide space of grass and reeds, and in the distance could be glimpsed another bank, almost as steep. The golden afternoon of late sunshine lay warm and drowsy upon the hidden land between. In the midst of it there wound lazily a dark river of brown water, bordered with ancient willows, arched over with willows, blocked with fallen willows, and flecked with thousands of faded willow leaves. The air was thick with them, fluttering yellow from the branches, for there was a warm and gentle breeze blowing softly in the valley, and the reeds were rustling, and the willow boughs were creaking. "Well, now I have at least some notion of where we are," said Mary. "We have come in almost the opposite direction to which we intended. This is the river Withywindle. I will go on and explore." He passed out into the sunshine and disappeared into the long grasses. After a while he reappeared and reported that there was fairly solid ground between the cliff foot and the river. In some places, firm turf went down to the water's edge. "What's more," he said, "there seems to be something like a footpath winding along on this side of the river. If we turn left and follow it, we shall be bound to come out on the east side of the forest eventually." "I dare say," said Pippin. "That is, if the track goes on so far, and does not simply lead us into a bog and leave us there. Who made the track, do you suppose, and why? Oof. I am sure it was not made for our benefit. I am getting very suspicious of this forest and everything in it, and I begin to believe all the stories about it. Have you any idea how far eastward we should have to go?" "No," said Mary, "I haven't. I don't know in the least how far down the Withywindle we are, or who could possibly come here often enough to make a path along it. But there is no other way out that I can see or think of." There being nothing else for it, they filed out, and Mary led them to the path that he had discovered. Everywhere the reeds and grasses were lush and tall, in places far above their heads. But once found, the path was easy to follow as it turned and twisted, picking out the sounder ground among the bogs and pools. Here and there it passed over other rills running down gullies into the Withywindle out of the higher forest lands, and at these points there were tree trunks or bundles of brushwood laid carefully across. The hobbits began to feel very hot. There were armies of flies of all kinds buzzing around their ears, and the afternoon sun was burning on their backs. At last they came suddenly into a thin shade. Great gray branches reached across the path. Each step forward became more reluctant than the last. Sleepiness seemed to be creeping out of the ground and up their legs, and falling softly out of the air upon their heads and eyes.
"They've been roofied."
Frodo felt his chin go down and his head nod. Just in front of him, Pippin fell forward onto his knees. Frodo halted. "It's no good," he heard Merry saying. "Can't go another step without rest. Must have nap. It's cool under the willows. Less flies." Frodo did not like the sound of this. "Come on," he cried. "We can't have a nap yet. We must get clear of the forest first." But the others were too far gone to care. Beside them Sam stood yawning and blinking stupidly. Suddenly Frodo himself felt sleep overwhelming him. His head swam. There now seemed hardly a sound in the air. The flies had stopped buzzing. Only a gentle noise on the edge of hearing, a soft fluttering as of a song half whispered, seemed to stir in the boughs above. He lifted his heavy eyes and saw leaning over him a huge willow tree, old and hoary. "Hey now."
Ha!
Enormous it looked, its sprawling branches going up like reaching arms with many long-fingered hands, its knotted and twisted trunk gaping in wide fissures that creaked faintly as the boughs moved. The leaves fluttering against the bright sky dazzled him, and he toppled over, lying where he fell upon the grass. Merry and Pippin dragged themselves forward and lay down with their backs to the willow trunk. Behind them the great cracks gaped wide to receive them as the tree swayed and creaked. They looked up at the gray and yellow leaves moving softly against the light and singing. They shut their eyes, and then it seemed that they could almost hear words, cool words, saying something about water and sleep. They gave themselves up to the spell and fell fast asleep at the foot of the great gray willow. Frodo lay for a while, fighting with the sleep that was overpowering him. Then with an effort he struggled to his feet again. He felt a compelling desire for cool water. "Wait for me, Sam," he stammered. "Must bathe feet a minute." Half in a dream he wandered forward to the riverward side of the tree, where great winding roots grew out into the stream, like gnarled dragonets straining down to drink. He straddled one of these and paddled his hot feet in the cool brown water. And there he, too, suddenly fell asleep, with his back against the tree. Sam sat down and scratched his head and yawned like a cavern. He was worried. The afternoon was getting late, and he thought this sudden sleepiness uncanny. "There's more behind this than sun and warm air," he muttered to himself. "I don't like this great big tree. I don't trust it. Hark at it singing about sleep now. This won't do at all." He pulled himself to his feet and staggered off to see what had become of the ponies. He found that 2 had wandered on a good way along the path, and he had just caught them and brought them back towards the others when he heard 2 noises, one loud and the other soft but very clear. One was the splash of something heavy falling into the water. The other was a noise like the snick of a lock when a door quietly closes fast. He rushed back to the bank. Frodo was in the water close to the edge, and a great tree root seemed to be over him and holding him down, but he was not struggling. Sam gripped him by the jacket and dragged him from under the root, and then with difficulty hauled him onto the bank. Almost at once he woke and coughed and spluttered. "Do you know, Sam," he said at length, "the beastly tree threw me in. I felt it. The big root just twisted round and tipped me in." "You were dreaming, I expect, Mr. Frodo," said Sam. "You shouldn't sit in such a place if you feel sleepy."
Like, Sam is totally on board with trees singing, but he doesn't think they can move.
We all have our thresholds. I love how everyone else is like, "This seems fine. This seems totally normal." And Sam's like, "Why is this tree singing?
Right?
I don't like this."
Oh, I don't trust it.
We stand one hobbit. Let's see. "What about the others?" Frodo asked. "I wonder what sort of dreams they are having." They went round to the other side of the tree, and then Sam understood the click that he had heard. Pippin had vanished. The crack by which he had laid himself had closed together so that not a chink could be seen. Merry was trapped. Another crack had closed about his waist. His legs lay outside, but the rest of him was inside a dark opening, the edges of which gripped like a pair of pincers. Frodo and Sam beat first upon the tree trunk where Pippin had lain. They then struggled frantically to pull open the jaws of the crack that held poor Merry. It was quite useless. "What a foul thing to happen!" cried Frodo wildly. "Why did we ever come into this dreadful forest? I wish we were all back at Crick Hollow." He kicked the tree with all his strength, heedless of his own feet. A hardly perceptible shiver ran through the stem and up into the branches. The leaves rustled and whispered, but with a sound now of faint and far-off laughter. "I suppose we haven't got an axe among our luggage, Mr. Frodo?" asked Sam. "I brought a little hatchet for chopping firewood," said Frodo. "That wouldn't be much use." "Wait a minute," cried Sam, struck by an idea suggested by firewood. "We might do something with fire." "We might," said Frodo doubtfully. "We might succeed in roasting Pippin alive inside." "We might try to hurt or frighten this tree to begin with," said Sam fiercely. "If it don't let them go, I'll have it down if I have to gnaw it." He ran to the ponies, and before long came back with 2 tinder boxes and a hatchet. Quickly they gathered dry grass and leaves and bits of bark, and made a pile of broken twigs and chopped sticks. These they heaped against the trunk on the far side of the tree from the prisoners. As soon as Sam had struck a spark into the tinder, it kindled the dry grass, and a flurry of flame and smoke went up. The twigs crackled. Little fingers of fire licked against the dry, scored rind of the ancient tree and scorched it. A tremor ran through the whole willow. The leaves seemed to hiss above their heads with a sound of pain and anger. A loud scream came from Merry, and from far inside the tree they heard Pippin give a muffled yell. "Put it out! Put it out!" cried Merry. "He'll squeeze me in two if you don't. He says so." "Who? What?" shouted Frodo, rushing round to the other side of the tree. "Put it out! Put it out!" begged Merry. The branches of the willow began to sway violently. There was a sound as of a wind rising and spreading outwards to the branches of all the other trees round about, as though they had dropped a stone into the quiet slumber of the river valley and set up ripples of anger that ran out over the whole forest. Sam kicked at the little fire and stamped out the sparks. But Frodo, without any clear idea of why he did so or what he hoped for, ran along the path crying, "Help! Help! Help!" It seemed to him that he could hardly hear the sound of his own shrill voice. It was blown away from him by the willow wind and drowned in a clamor of leaves as soon as the words left his mouth. He felt desperate, lost and witless. Suddenly he stopped. There was an answer, or so he thought, but it seemed to come from behind him, away down the path further back in the forest. He turned round and listened, and soon there could be no doubt. Someone was singing a song. A deep, glad voice was singing carelessly and happily, but it was singing nonsense. "Hey doll, derry doll, ring-a-ding-dillo, ring-a-dong, hop along, fall all the willow. Tom Bomb, jolly Tom, Tom Bombadillo."
Hello. Are Jason's power tools too loud? Can you hear them right now?
No, I don't think I can hear them. Maybe a tiny buzz off in the distance, but nothing that I would have even noticed.
Then I'm not going to worry about muting because that's why I was muting before. Tell me if they
Gotcha.
get too loud for you.
I will do that. What was I going to say? Have we talked about the person who did
Yes. The dissertation on how evil Tom Bombadil is? Was that it? It was something like that.
That's not what I was thinking of, because I know we've talked about that. But and yeah, it was like this dissertation on why Tom Bombadil is actually like secretly super evil and the scariest character in Lord of the Rings, which is also great. But I was thinking about the person who did an X-rated fanfic Tom Bombadil song.
Oh my god, no, that's awesome and terrible. I will never read it or watch it.
Oh, he did a dramatic reading.
Of course he did.
It's the dude who does the narration for Welcome to Night Vale, Cecil Baldwin. I forget which is the character's name.
Nice.
Cecil Baldwin, I think, is the actor's name. Yeah. Yeah, it was
Oh, go look it up, people. If you
if you're into that sort of thing, it's really amusing. It's Tom Bombadil inviting the hobbits to have an orgy with him and Goldberry.
nice. Does it go on to the orgy itself?
I don't
And
remember.
incidentally, I totally forgot to post that we were doing this. Did you?
Mm-mm. Okay. Well, while you do that, I will continue reading
Do.
about Tom Bombadil. Half hopeful and half afraid of some new danger, Frodo and Sam now both stood still. Suddenly, out of a long string of nonsense words, or so they seemed, the voice rose up loud and clear and burst into this song. This is a short song and also very plot relevant, so I'm just going to read it. Hey doll, come merry doll, dairy doll, my darling. Light goes the weather wind and the feathered starling. Down along under hill, shining in the sunlight, waiting on the doorstep for the cold starlight. There my pretty lady is, river woman's daughter, slender as the willow wand, clearer than the water. Old Tom Bombadil, water lilies bringing, comes hopping home again. Can you hear him singing? Hey, come merry doll, dairy doll, and merry-o. Goldberry, Goldberry, merry yellow berry-o. It's one of Tolkien's tongue twisters. Jonald Ronald, I see you.
Donald Ronald Ruled?
Jonald Ronald Rolkin Tolkien.
Rolkin Tolkien.
Let's see. Goldberry, Goldberry, merry yellow berry-o. Poor old willow man, you tuck your roots away. Tom's in a hurry now, evening will follow day. Tom's going home again, water lilies bringing. Hey, come dairy doll, can you hear me singing? Okay, that was less plot relevant than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, but it did have the Goldberry line that we love to hate so much.
One of my favorite, least favorite. All right, let's see. Frodo and Sam stood as if enchanted. The wind puffed out. The leaves hung silently again on stiff branches. There was another burst of song, and then suddenly, hopping and dancing along the path, there appeared above the reeds an old battered hat with a tall crown and a long blue feather stuck in the band. With another hop and a bound, there came into view a man. Or so it seemed. At any rate, he was too large and heavy for a hobbit, if not quite tall enough for one of the big people. Though he made noise enough for one, stomping along with great yellow boots on his thick legs, and charging through grass and rushes like a cow going down to drink. He had a blue coat and a long brown beard. His eyes were blue and bright, and his face was red as a... His eyes were blue and bright. His hat was green and funny, but he's not bad. Well, no one told me about him.
The way he runs the woods.
No one told me about him. He's really got the goods. Well, it's too late to say you're sorry, 'cause Old Man Willow don't even care. But if you're trapped in the old forest, Tom is there.
Yes.
Yes.
Incidentally, I have always pictured Tom Bombadil as Peter Jackson.
I could see it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although Goldberry isn't quite Fran Walsh, but...
No, Goldberry is more of a Kate Blanchett.
Oh, well,
Or
yeah.
maybe like, what's her name? What's her... Cut rate Kate Blanchett.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of somebody else.
I'm thinking of the chick from... Romeo and Juliet.
Gwyneth Paltrow?
No, you're thinking of Shakespeare in Love.
I am thinking of Shakespeare in Love. Claire Danes.
Claire Danes. Yes. Also from the movie based on the Neil Gaiman book that I can't think of the name of that I was also trying to reference.
Stardust.
Stardust. Thank God you're here. What would I do without you?
Read into a vacuum. Um, she was also in Stage Beauty, which is one of my favorites.
Stage Beauty is very good. She has a real like period drama thing going on.
Yeah.
Anyways, Claire Danes, Goldberry, fan cast. Just saying.
I could see it, but Claire Danes has always been a little tepid for my money. I'd go with one of the rosier, bouncier blondes. Except I can't think of any for this generation.
Who were you thinking of for a previous generation?
See, now it's my turn to forget names. Who are the three girls from Charmed?
Oh, dude, you don't want to ask me. I don't know.
There's Alyssa Milano, Rose
McGowan?
Yeah, Rose McGowan. She
I
had
can't-
a very intense little face.
I can't bring her face to mind.
Anyway, one of those.
Perhaps. I always think of Goldberry a little bit more ethereal, not so like rosy and bouncy and
Yes, but not cold. I don't know. She's cool, according to Tom, but
well, let me read until we get to the description, if we get there tonight, and then we can try to work with that.
yes.
Let's see. His eyes were blue and bright. His face was red as a ripe apple, but creased into 100 wrinkles of laughter. In his hands he carried on a large leaf as on a tray a small pile of white water lilies. "Help!" cried Frodo and Sam, running towards him with their hands stretched out. "Whoa, whoa! Steady there!" cried the old man, holding up one hand, and they stopped short as if they had been struck stiff. "Now, my little fellows, where be you a-going, puffing like a bellows?" Oh God, I forgot Tom always talks in rhyme. Jesus. Okay. What's the matter? What's the matter here, then? Do you know who I am? I'm Tom Bombadil. Tell me, what's your trouble? Tom's in a hurry now. Don't you crush my lilies. Which, that doesn't rhyme, but it's metered. And it's very upsetting. "My friends are caught in the willow tree," cried Frodo breathlessly. "Master Merry's being squeezed in a crack," cried Sam. Well, all right then. What? Shouted Tom Bombadil, leaping up in the air. "Old Man Willow? Not worse than that, eh? That can soon be mended. I know the tune for him. Old Grey Willow Man. I'll freeze his marrow cold if he don't behave himself. I'll sing his roots off. I'll sing a wind up and blow leaf and branch away. Old Man Willow." Setting down his lilies carefully on the grass, he ran to the tree. There he saw Mary's feet still sticking out. The rest had already been drawn further inside. Tom put his mouth to the crack.
Yep.
And began singing into it in a low voice.
Yep.
They could not catch the words, but evidently Mary was aroused. I'm sorry, that's just what it says. I didn't write it. His legs began to kick. Tom sprang away, and breaking off a hanging branch, smote the side of the willow with it. "You let them out again, Old Man Willow," he said. "What be you a-thinking of? You should not be waking. Eat earth, dig deep, drink water, go to sleep. Bombadil is talking." He then seized Mary's feet and drew him out of the suddenly widening crack. There was a tearing creak, and the other crack split open, and out of it Pippin sprang as if he had been kicked. Then, with a loud snap, both cracks closed fast again. A shudder ran through the tree from root to tip, and complete silence fell. "Thank you," said the hobbits, one after the other. Tom Bombadil burst out laughing. "Well, my little fellows," he said, stooping so that he peered into their faces, "you shall come home with me. The table is all laden with yellow cream, honeycomb, and white bread and butter. Goldberry is waiting. Time enough for questions around the supper table. You follow after me, quick as you are able." With that, he picked up his lilies, and then with a beckoning wave of his hand, he went hopping and dancing along the path eastwards, still singing loudly and nonsensically. Too surprised and too relieved to talk, the hobbits followed after him as fast as they could, but that was not fast enough. Tom soon disappeared in front of them, and the noise of his singing got fainter and further away. Suddenly his voice came floating to them in a loud halloo. "Hop along, my little friends, up the withy windle. Tom's going on ahead, candles for to kindle. Down west sinks the sun, soon you will be groping. When the night shadows fall..."
Quit pausing like that.
I'm just saying, it probably wasn't a hard fanfic to write. When the night shadows fall, then the door will open. Out of the window panes, light will twinkle yellow. Fear no alder black, heed no hoary willow. Fear neither root nor bough, Tom goes on before you. Hey now, merry doll, we'll be waiting for you. After that, the hobbits heard no more. Almost at once, the sun seemed to sink into the trees behind them. They thought of the slanting light of evening glittering on the Brandywine River, and the windows of Bucklebury beginning to gleam with hundreds of lights. Great shadows fell across them. Trunks and branches of trees hung dark and threatening over the path. White mists began to rise and curl on the surface of the river and stray about the roots of the trees upon its borders. Out of the very ground at their feet, a shadowy steam arose and mingled with the swiftly following dark. It became difficult to follow the path, and they were very tired. Their legs seemed leaden. Strange, furtive noises ran among the bushes and reeds on either side of them, and if they looked up to the pale sky, they caught sight of queer, gnarled and knobbly faces that gloomed dark against the twilight, and leered down at them from the high bank and the edges of the wood. They began to feel that all this country was unreal, and that they were stumbling through an ominous dream that led to no awakening. Just as they felt their feet slowing down to a standstill, they noticed that the ground was gently rising. The water began to murmur. In the darkness, they caught the white glimmer of foam where the river flowed over a short fall. Then suddenly the trees came to an end, and the mists were left behind. They stepped out from the forest and found a wide sweep of grass swelling up before them. The river, now small and swift, was leaping merrily down to meet them, glinting here and there in the light of the stars, which were already shining in the sky. The grass under their feet was smooth and short, as if it had been mown or shaven. The eaves of the forest behind were clipped and trim as a hedge. Ooh, pretty.
Thank you.
The path was now plain before them, well tended and bordered with stone. It wound up onto the top of a grassy knoll, now gray under the pale starry night, and there, still high above them on a further slope, they saw the twinkling lights of a house. Down again the path went, and then up again, up a long, smooth hillside of turf towards the light. Suddenly, a wide yellow beam flowed out brightly from a door that was opened. There was Tom Bombadil's house before them, up, down, under hill. Behind it, a steep shoulder of the land lay gray and bare, and beyond that, the dark shapes of the Barrow Downs stalked away into the eastern night. They all hurried forward, hobbits and ponies. Already half of their weariness and all their fears had fallen from them. "Hey, come merry doll," rolled out the song to greet them. "Hey, come merry doll, hop along, my hearties, hobbits, ponies all, we are fond of parties. Now let the fun begin, let us sing together." Then another clear voice, as young and as ancient as spring, like the song of the glad water flowing down into the night from a bright morning in the hills, came falling like silver to meet them. "Now let the song begin. Let us sing together, of sun, stars, moon, and mist, rain and cloudy weather, light on the budding leaf, dew on the feather, wind on the open hill, bells on the heather, reeds by the shady pool, lilies on the water, old Tom Bombadil and the river daughter." And with that song, the hobbits stood upon the threshold, and a golden light was all about them.
Nice.
Chapter 7. My copy has Roman numerals. Took me a second.
Oh, right.
In the house of Tom Bombadil.
Woo!
The 4 hobbits stepped over the wide stone threshold and stood still, blinking. They were in a long, low room filled with the light of lamps swinging from the beams of the roof, and on the table of dark polished wood stood many candles, tall and yellow, burning brightly. I'm going to adjust for a second here.
Is this where the trope originates of the chubby comedian husband and his slender, beautiful wife? Because that's like every sitcom ever.
I think that the trope originates in the patriarchy.
You mean the people who write those are chubby comedians, perhaps?
Who feel that they are entitled to beautiful wives to whom they will treat terribly because their wives are just so happy to be with them? Yes, possibly.
Or they just really, really wish they could have slender, beautiful, eternally patient wives.
Well, yes, I mean they wish. It's not that they do have those, it's that they feel like they deserve them.
Wishing isn't the same as feeling like you deserve.
No, it's not, but I think they feel like they deserve.
All right.
It's just my theory from the mediocre men that I have encountered. Not all men. Hashtag not all men.
Okay.
Some men. Anyways.
Mediocrity is not gender specific.
No. No, indeed. Let's see. They were in a long, low room filled with the light of lamps swinging from the beams of the roof, and on the table of dark polished wood stood many candles, tall and yellow, burning brightly. In a chair at the far side of the room, facing the outer door, sat a woman. Her long yellow hair rippled down her shoulders, not from her shoulders. Her hair grew on her head. Rippled down her shoulders. Her gown was green as young reeds, shot with silver like beads of dew. And her belt was of gold, shaped like a chain of flag lilies, set with the pale blue eyes of forget-me-nots. I always picture her extremely Art Nouveau. Like really Art Nouveau.
Oh, yeah. Seriously. Somehow, okay, I want her brows to be pale, sandy brows, but her lashes to be dark. Is that doable?
I mean, with makeup, everything is doable. About her feet, in wide vessels of green and brown earthenware, white water lilies were floating, so that she seemed to be enthroned in the midst of a pool. "Enter, good guests," she said, and as she spoke they knew that it was her clear voice they had heard singing. They came a few timid steps further into the room and began to bow low, feeling strangely surprised and awkward. Like folk that, knocking at a cottage door to beg for a drink of water, have been answered by a fair young elf queen clad in living flowers. It's basically what you are.
Yeah. Their metaphor for their experience is exactly the same as their experience.
I feel like a person who was reading aloud and then kind of got tired of sitting in one position and decided to lay down upon my bed instead. Shocking.
Well, wait a minute. I think that's an apt metaphor.
I feel surprisingly similar to that, in fact. Nearly identical.
Nearly.
Okay.
But they were borrowing a cup of sugar. They were begging for a place to spend the night.
I don't even think they really know why they're there at this point. They're just like, we're scared. Help.
We're in over our heads.
It's our first day and we already suck at this. But before they could say anything, she sprang lightly up and over the lily bowls and ran laughing towards them. And as she ran, her gown rustled softly like the wind in the flowering borders of a river. Come, dear folk.
I know it's beautiful. I know it's a beautiful image. I see it as a beautiful image, but when I really put my mind to it, I can picture them like standing in the doorway and she jumps up, leaps over some bowls and goes, and all of that when would have just was exactly what he just described.
I mean, you're not wrong. Also, she could have done a standing long jump over those poles. We don't know.
Right? Ah.
Come, dear folk, she said, taking Frodo by the hand. Laugh and be merry. I am Goldberry, daughter of the river. Well, we can't laugh. You haven't said anything funny. Then lightly she passed them, and closing the door, she turned her back to it, with her wide arms spread out across it. Oh dear.
Oh
Are you
dear.
there?
Yes, what's up? Am I here? Hello?
Robin?
Yes. I'm here. Do you see me? What's up? Unmute. You froze. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Let's try to get Robin back. Hey, I was just texting you to be like, try again. It's working for me.
Okay. I am
Okay.
trying again.
Well, We are here. We are back.
We are. We've got 10 minutes. And Goldberry just did a standing long jump and went.
And then she was like, "Hey guys, it's fine." And then she exactly threw herself across the door. Like, "Hey." So that's not at all alarming. Okay. Closing the door, she turned her back to it with her white arms spread out across it. "Let
Yep.
us shut out the night," she said. "For you are still afraid, perhaps, of mist and tree shadows and deep water and untamed things. Fear not, for tonight you are under the roof of Tom Bombadil." The hobbits looked at her in wonder, and she looked at each of them and smiled. "Fair Lady Goldberry," said Frodo at last, feeling his heart moved with a joy that he did not understand. Thirst, Frodo, it's called thirst. He stood as he had at times stood enchanted by fair elven voices, but the spell that was now laid upon him was different. Less keen and lofty was the delight, but deeper and nearer to mortal heart. Marvelous, and yet not strange. "Fair Lady Goldberry," he said again, "now the joy that was hidden in the songs we heard is made plain to me. Oh, slender as a willow wand, oh, clearer than clear water." One moment.
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, reed by the living pool, fair river daughter. Oh, springtime and summertime, and spring again after. Oh, wind on the waterfall, and the leaves' laughter." Suddenly he stopped and stammered, overcome with surprise to hear himself saying such things. But Goldberry laughed. "Welcome," she said. "I had not heard that folk of the Shire were so sweet-tongued. But I see you are an elf friend. The light in your eyes and the ring in your voice tells it. This is a merry meeting. Sit now and wait for the master of the house. He will not be long. He is tending your tired beasts." The hobbits sat down gladly in low, rush-seated chairs, while Goldberry busied herself about the table, and their eyes followed her, for the slender grace of her movement filled them with quiet delight. From somewhere behind the house came the sound of singing. Every now and again they caught, among many a derry-doll and a merry-doll and a ring-a-ding-dillo, the repeated words, "Old Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow.
No.
Bright blue his jacket is, and his boots are yellow."
No.
I don't often feel the need to announce what color my shoes are. Usually people can tell.
Yes, well, I mean, not a lot of colors rhyme with fellow. Not a lot of
True.
words rhyme with fellow.
Mellow.
Mellow. I guess there's more than orange, but
More than orange or purple.
it's a damn good thing his boots aren't orange or purple.
Yeah, every time I try to sing a song about my Doc Martens, I just can't rhyme it with anything because they're purple. The only word that rhymes with purple is herple. I don't know. If you see
it's better
that.
than ox blood.
It's true.
Yeah. What rhymes with ox blood? Fox blood.
Lox blood.
Box blood.
Nope. Nope. Don't like it.
Tom Bombadil is a very blocks blood. My blue jacket is and boots are ox blood.
"Fair lady," said Frodo again after a while, "tell me if my asking does not seem foolish. Who is Tom Bombadil?" "He is," said Goldberry, staying in her swift movements and smiling. That's it. That's all she says. "He is."
He is. He is that he is.
"He yam what he yam."
Yeah, what he am. Oh, God, she's olive oil. This is all so irreverent. It makes me feel dirty. Keep reading.
Frodo looked at her questioningly. "He is as you have seen him," she said in answer to his look. "He is the master of wood, water, and hill." "Then all this strange land belongs to him?" "No, indeed," she answered, and her smile faded. "That would indeed be a burden," she added in a low voice, as if to herself. The trees and the grasses and all things growing or living in the land belong each to themselves. Tom Bombadil is the master. No one has ever caught old Tom walking in the forest, wading in the water, leaping on the hilltops under light and shadow. He has no fear. Tom Bombadil is master. A door opened, and in came Tom Bombadil. He had now no hat, and his thick brown hair was crowned with autumn leaves. He laughed, and going to Goldberry, took her hand. "Here's my pretty lady," he said, bowing to the hobbits. "Here's my Goldberry, clothed all in silver green, with flowers in her girdle. Is the table laden? I see yellow cream and honeycomb, and white bread and butter, milk, cheese, and green herbs, and ripe berries gathered. Is that enough for us? Is the supper ready?" "It is," said Goldberry, "but the guests perhaps are not." Tom clapped his hands and cried, "Tom, Tom, your guests are tired, and you had near forgotten. Come now, my merry friends, and Tom will refresh you. You shall clean grimy hands and wash your weary faces, cast off your muddy cloaks and comb out your tangles." He opened the door, and they followed him down a short passage and round a sharp turn. They came to a low room with a sloping roof, a penthouse, it seemed, built onto the northern end of the house. I don't know if penthouse in this context means what I think of it as meaning.
Nope.
Let's see.
But you can be damn sure that he used the proper Oxford definition of the word.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Its walls were of clean stone, but they were mostly covered with green hanging mats and yellow curtains. The floor was flagged and strewn with fresh green rushes. There were 4 deep mattresses, each piled with white blankets, laid on the floor along one side. Against the opposite wall was a long bench, laden with wide earthenware basins, and beside it stood brown ewers filled with water, some cold, some steaming hot. There were soft green slippers set ready beside each bed. Before long, washed and refreshed, the hobbits were seated at the table, 2 on each side, while at either end sat Goldberry and the master. It was a long and merry meal. Though the hobbits ate, as only famished hobbits can eat, there was no lack. The drink in their drinking bowls seemed to be clear, cold water, yet it went to their hearts like wine and set free their voices. It's Everclear!
Woo! Vodka!
They came in, she leaped at them, cackled, slammed the door, and then handed them Everclear to drink like water. This is a party house.
Hell yeah. It might be Aquavit.
Oh, no, they would know. Aquavit has a very particular taste.
So does Everclear.
Oh, okay.
Like rubbing alcohol.
That's true, but Aquavit tastes like rubbing alcohol and licorice had an abomination bastard child. It's one of the few things that I've ever tried to take a sip of and immediately almost thrown up and had to like just banish it from my world forever. It was really bad.
I liked absinthe.
Yeah, absinthe is... Well, I don't know if I've actually ever drank any absinthe. Which is weird because I was in Prague, you would think.
Right?
But
Right?
I didn't do things in Prague.
You didn't. You were poor. Poor people can't do things anywhere.
It's true. Okay.
Well, anyway, they're singing like drunks.
The guests became suddenly aware that they were singing merrily, as if that was easier and more natural than talking. At last Tom and Goldberry rose and cleared the table swiftly. Their guests were commanded to sit quiet and were set in chairs, each with a footstool to his tired feet. There was a fire in the wide hearth before them, and it was burning with a sweet smell, as if it were built of apple wood. When everything was set in order, all the lights in the room were put out, except one lamp and a pair of candles at each end of the chimney shelf. Then Goldberry came and stood before them, holding a candle, and she wished them each a good night and deep sleep. "Have peace now," she said, "until the morning. Heed no nightly noises, for nothing passes door and window here, save moonlight and starlight and the wind off the hilltop. Good night." She passed out of the room with a glimmer and a rustle. The sound of her footsteps was like a stream falling gently away downhill over cool stones in the quiet of night. Tom sat on a while beside them in silence, while each of them tried to muster the courage to ask one of the many questions he had meant to ask at supper. Sleep gathered on their eyelids. At last Frodo spoke. "Did you hear me calling, master, or was it just chance that brought you at that moment?" Tom stirred like a man shaken out of a pleasant dream. "Eh, what?" he said. "Did I hear you calling? Nay, I did not hear. I was busy singing. Just chance brought me then, if chance you call it. It was no plan of mine, though I was waiting for you. We heard news of you and learned that you were wandering. We guessed you'd come ere long down to the water. All paths lead that way, down to Withywindle. Old Grey Willow Man, he's a mighty singer, and it's hard for little folk to escape his cunning mazes. But Tom had an errand there that he dared not hinder." Tom nodded as if sleep was taking him again, but he went on in a soft singing voice. "I had an errand there, gathering water lilies, green leaves and lilies white, to please my pretty lady, the last ere the year's end, to keep them from the winter, to flower by her pretty feet till the snows are melted. Each year at summer's end I go to find them for her, in a wide pool deep and clear, far down the Withywindle. Oh, it must be 8, it's the howling. Hold on. I don't know if you can hear that, but
I can hear that. Oh, I haven't howled yet. I keep intending to.
I don't know that I plan to.
Happy howling, people. Is that your people or is that somebody else? Neighbors?
No, neighbors.
I belong to the group, but I keep not doing it, mainly because I'm in here. However, at some point.
Indeed.
It's my style. But since it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we should probably cut it off here. We're like halfway through Tom's poem, but that's fine. We can just pick up at the beginning of the poem again next time.
And have you come up with any good inspiration other than Claire Danes, who might have grown past it at this point?
Yeah, actually, the chick who played Emma in the most recent version of Emma kind of has that otherworldly look.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a new so in The Witcher they've got an actress who plays a young blonde with an unearthly look to her, but she's kind of like a cut price Kirsten Dunst, really.
Are you talking about the girl who plays Ciri? She's too young.
Is she? How old is she?
She's like 12 or 13.
The character or the actress?
The character, but the actress looks not that much older.
Perhaps.
Did that come across? I don't know what that meant. Okay.
That it happened. What did they say?
I caught America. I don't know. I got nothing. I'm gonna go, and we can figure out a Goldberry fan cast next time.
Hell yeah! Anyone who has ideas, post them. Love you.
Love you.
Cuidado.
Llamas.
Bye.
Bye.